Okay, so I'm back making the video. Um, I already mentioned, like, I would sacrifice my intellectual and moral capacity if it meant um, that, money gets saved or transferred. Because money really is just a unit of exchange. So, you can exchange it for time, you can exchange it for water, food, etc. So, if I'm like exchanging it for, my hygiene, I'm willing to accept, looking like you know lower than, like, putting my ego down and looking, a certain way. I'm willing to accept, willing to accept, the losses of not having, like hygiene, or a dirty room. I'm willing to accept that. um Willing to accept that if it means that, um somebody else who's on their lowest day, if it's a difference between life and death, and I'm trading that for that, I'm willing to accept that. um I'm willing to accept that, and especially because, my diet's been good. I'm not talking about like right now, but I'm talking about like prior to when I was 25. Talking about uh back in the day, back in back in the early 2000s. um I ate ample amount of meat per se, so I know that my diet was good. I don't know where my time went. Like, I know, playing, like, watching the movies, there's all these like TV shows and movies that they shove down your throat. And I mean, for the most part, real life is just real life. It is what it is. We don't decide, who we're born as, or like, even like, we don't decide to be born. Like, that's not a choice. Like, I didn't ask to be born, right? So, um, you know, um, I get, like, there is some definitive, like, there's obviously a bunch of uncertainty, and, a lot of like conflict and uncertainty, but like, there is like some certainty that, you know, second, is that a lighter? It's a lighter. There is some certainty that, like, um, you know, right now it feels like there's more certainty. Like, my body's literally like solidifying. Typically, like I've felt, some shape shifting issues. Um, it's probably like a result of living in the modern world. Um, dealing with dealing with a world where you don't know how to react anymore, where the things are changing so quickly that you don't even have a second to get a grasp on reality, right? Like, you don't even get a second to grasp on reality. And you know the system itself, we obviously know it doesn't work, and it's, destroyed people's lives and wasted their time. The Canadian system, that is. um uh like, obviously, like a cool concept of, going to work and paying bills and all this stuff. And there's like a statistic, there's like 20 million, 10 million Americans unemployed, not working, right? And everyone's judging them, they're criticizing them, and obviously the system was to blame since like 2012. But for purposes of the video, I'm willing to sacrifice, physical, the ability to walk normally, psychological, psychological, emotional, moral capacities, if it means that, money is allocated elsewhere, right? So that, like, properly talking and doing all this stuff, it means nothing, right? In the world where, like, everything is changing, and you don't even have the chance to program a sense of humor into your mind, like, um I know there's some faults of mine, properly finishing college before even, traveling or something, proper dopamine reward system wiring, that's my fault, right? um and it's my fault because, um you can choose to make choices to, properly wire yourself. um Neglect, I think I was neglected as a child. Contrary to what people believe, neglect is not always just, leaving the child alone unattended. It can appear differently, in different ways. um Excuse me. Yeah, it can appear in different ways. Like, it could appear in different ways, right? Neglect isn't always, just, you know um it could be passive neglect and other kinds of neglect. And I already talked about the system, and, the legal system, and, like, um people's lives getting ruined and whatnot. um I mean, the prisons are getting full, right? And they can't arrest everybody, right? Like, I don't know where they get this manpower from. Like, these people are, like, spawning out of nowhere. But um I mean, I think I said it before, like, an extreme society. I don't remember what else I was saying, but, like, an extreme society, um you know uh it was important. I had this, like, thought in my mind. It was something I really wanted to get off my chest. um I mean, you know um other than the capacity thing, I mean, the system not working, or, you know the law functioning in a certain way. It's just the way the laws are written, right? The system just doesn't work because of the way the laws are written. And, the police have to enforce those laws, and whatever we reap is what we reap. No, we reap what we sow. But no, it's a shame. The modern world is very complicated. um uh to some extent, I am responsible for watching the TV shows and the movies instead of maybe interacting with the world and helping the people out and creating friendships. I'm not one that has many friendships. I don't have many friends. um no, sincerely, I don't have many friends. I mean, I would have created the friendships. I just, look back at it, like, looking back at the past, I had a lot of potential to create friendships, but I guess they just never came to pass. And then there's, dealing with, like, issues, like, the there was an issue, like, it was like, a legal issue, like, moral. Mention morals, like, uh, you know, sacrificing moral capacity. I think I mentioned that. Um, Socially, like, I don't know, like, you know, um, I mean, the system not working, right? Everybody's known that since 2012. So me making this video shouldn't, like, I'm hoping it's common sense at that point, right? 2012, everybody agreed that, education system doesn't work, right? It's taking too long. It's repetitive, and, it's redundant. Chinese kids learning calculus in the 5th grade. Obviously, those are things that I think about personally, right? On a personal level, I think about. But obviously, other people, their priorities are their priorities. Whatever it is. But, like, I get it. These videos are redundant. They're after the fact, right? Wanting to go to the past. Whether capitalism and these distractions, like, like, if I watched those TV shows, so I took part in the Redden Circus, right? I have to acknowledge that was my responsibility. Nobody forced me to, watch the Redden Circus like how I did. No, dead serious. Like, nobody forced me on that. Like, nobody said you have to watch, the TV show. Um, uh, no, nobody said I had to watch the TV show, like, seriously. Um, of course, I just sometimes wonder if this is, like, the point of no return. Like, the world is just in such a messy place psychologically that, you can't go back. And obviously, my only intention, this is another thing I want to say. The only intention I ever had of, making friends then would have been to get soldiers to fight in my wars, in my conflicts, so that, I'm not the only one having to deal with, like, if I'm a vegetarian and then there's a meat eater, a person who advocates for the opposite, right? Like, they're gonna fight for it, right? And some people, they'll fight you over anything. I already said it before. Like, really, they're looking for a fight. They're looking to pick on you and pick out a fight. So they'll just do it, right? But like, sincerely, right? Like, getting to this point where I'm in the plumbing program. I'm actually like attending a degree university, like post-secondary institution. It's relevant, because many of my peers, they didn't make it to this level, right? They didn't make it to this level, and unfortunately, the system works this way, where like, you don't want to like think about it, but the worst aspects that of that person can have is what the system kind of shows you, right? Who's favored, who, populism, thing like that. Obviously, it's not always the case. There's a lot of chance, right? The reason I'm alive and the other person isn't, like, people think it's just random. It's chance, right? A lot of life is just chance and random. It's not. There's no like, there isn't really a lot of order to the universe. Like, there's some, but it's not a given that, it's just there all the time, right? So, no, you're like, I don't know, like the system, the legal system, all that, like some of these people really are criminals, right? And I mean, obviously, like the country is falling apart, but the system ruined their life in the first place. The frustrations, the door being too far, airplanes moving and making noise, and cars and all this, and people being annoying in general, right? Like, I was called annoying in elementary school, but like, that was just me, right? And like, nobody forced me to watch the TV shows or the movies. I could have easily, gone out there and just offered housing and whatever. And obviously, like, the friendships I make, some of them are based on nothing. They have no solid foundation, so it fails. I get that. Shit, I'm talking a whole ton. No, but like, the world crushing any of your ambitions. I mean, this is why you don't want to have a purpose. You don't want to be overly ambitious. Like, these people driving in their cars and trying to fight for something, trying to hustle and like, earn money. Like, obviously the money used to be an incentive, and it's a normal incentive, to work, and, dopamine reward system, like a normal, like normal dopamine reward system, and programming a person like psychologically for success, right? Like, because obviously, as you go forward into the future, like, a lot of these things, we see it as just like, it was like I said, like, I sacrificed my diet, I sacrificed all these things so that another person, if they needed that extra intellectual capacity, they can use mine, right? They can use my sense of humor, or all the knowledge I've gathered throughout the last 25 years, which is a lot, only by the factor that I've manually had to make things look a certain way. I've manually, I've even had this thought, and I was talking to my coach about it, where like, like the university college degrees, like, it's not that they're even worth anything anymore. Like, they're worth something, but they're not going to be the actual thing anymore that really, like, is that's that's what the fuck is it called? That fucking makes or breaks it. It's not like a diploma certainly will help. It certainly will improve my circumstance, but it's not going to be, I think, the icebreaker. And a lot of people need that icebreaker, right? They need that, like, breaking the ice. And I think the other thing I want to mention was, in terms of like civil discourse in the society, which we know is kind of at a rough point. Like, I think we are at the point where, like, civil discourse, no, that's why I did Toastmasters. Toastmasters gives you the opportunity to develop communication skills and knowing how to communicate, right? Because a lot of people, they don't know how to communicate, and in an orderly setting, you communicate, and in a lot of places they need like a Toastmaster like organization where they have like a Toastmaster who like opens the meeting, and people who congregate these meetings when people communicate, right? Because when people communicate, it's just random, right? They just start talking, and they start talking, right? And they don't manage themselves, they don't pause, they don't know how to make gestures, they can't, like, they have like maybe zero charisma, they have no ability to control their tone and their speed, especially when trying to convey a message, to one person or many, So, like, so the video goes suffice, right? The suffice to say, right? What the purpose of me, doing these videos or being alive, it's weird because, a lot of people, they would just immediately go to the movie theater, right? They go to the movie theater, watch the movies, and then, they rinse and repeat, go to work, and they have their escapism. But the thing is when real life is as serious as it is, and you know now that you have like a limited amount of time on this earth, a YOLO type situation which is not a good culture, right? People want, they want to know that, like, tomorrow they can wake up and they can plan their day, they can plan ahead without fearing that, they won't wake up the next day or something, right? It's not a good way to live, right? But for me, I'm living on the edge, right? I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know the people, right? And I'm not appealing to emotion. I'm not appealing to any, like, pedophile, a lot of people, like, like the whole sexual emotion thing, right? Like there's a lot of, like, it's I don't tell people how to live their lives and all that, but, like, there's that's not a good way to live, right? You're appealing to, like, that the person feels bad for you and whatever, and like, I don't want that to be my life, so I make that clear in the videos, because you don't want to appeal that, like, that level of a person, right? And these videos are honest with their advice. Obviously most people won't want to see these videos because of, like, the amount of, like, shit that's out there on the internet, and also talking damages the Canadian order. So if everything was going fine, I wouldn't be saying anything at all. That's literally what one of the messages of the video is. Like, even, like, quantifying reality and, quantifying it and commodifying it, and even, like, when talking about one person or you're gossiping, right? Gossiping is a sin in the Bible and in most other religion. The concept of talking about a person or another person in their life or a group of people, like, it's not in a lot of gossiping is not in goodwill. So, like, and if, like, but the thing is, the core point, the core beginning of all gossip is frustration, right? You're frustrated with your own life, so you start talking trash about, like, another person's life. And truth be told, like, if it was up to me, I wouldn't be ever leaving the country, right? I would stay put in Canada from beginning to end. I wouldn't vacation, all that, right? Okay, like, I watch the movie, whatever, the TV show, like that's a given, right? That's, like, to entice a person to buy the person out, right? Like you're buying the person out. Because I had them, I had the dream, right? I had the dream of I nearly died, right? And so basically what I saw was a guy, right? He's like this guy, but he has in the midst of like a bunch of people, like going through the we'll just call it going through the steps, right? He has his hand out, right? He has his hand out, and he's like trying to like pick me up, right? And when he's trying to pick me up, it's like he's it's like because like I'm overdosed, right? And I'm just some random addict, right? So when you die, the person willingly wants you to help you up, right? Because they say when you die, you don't go into the light, because when you go in the light, and I saw it, right? The guy was like there was a guy holding out his hand and trying to help you out, and right? And all of a sudden you're back here, you're back in the physical world, right? The evil nature of the physical world, which is why like you shouldn't engage with it at all. But now that you're here, right, you are engaging with it. And like it comes without saying, like the guy he told me he's immediately like trying to sell you something, right? He's trying to sell you like this thing. He's like, oh yeah, we need you to partake in the system and all that. And then like he's like and then obviously like it all ends, right? Because you see the light, right? And then in the final analysis, the most important part, like you don't want to partake in the system, so you don't want to like end up as like in a situation where you don't want to end up in a situation where like you are in a vulnerable position where like the person takes advantage of you. And I would have just stayed in the system and partook from beginning to end, even if I look stupid in the end. 1 second, I would have stayed in the system, like partook from beginning to end, and I wouldn't have even left my house, right? Because the moment you take a step and partake in the system, that's how they get you, right? And there was never a revolt against the system. There was Occupy Wall Street, there was the trucker convoy, whatever, but none of it came into fruition. None of it resulted in anything. No, because you could live your life peacefully, but these concepts, like these unfortunate concepts, we'll call it the quantity factor, the gossip factor, right? Where a person points something out, and they say something, they look at you a certain way, and then that's it, right? Your life could change, right? Like there's an altercation, and he said, she said, and it's I remember telling the teacher, I was telling the teacher about like I'm telling on whoever, right? And like for argument's sake, right? Like you're telling on whoever and whatever, but it is what it is. 1 second, I'm gonna check if there's any food we got here. No, cause like I said, this quantity factor, like this factor is like it's a killer, because it's not something that you willingly want to get involved in, where the reason you die, right, is because some other person said something or they pointed something out. Horrible time. And again, everybody could play the incredulity card. They can play that, they're, feel sorry for them. And that's probably why I'm here in this country, right? Because some border agent felt sorry for my parents and they let them in. And then next thing you know it, I'm here. Next thing you know it, I'm here. And the border agent, I hope my parents didn't take advantage of a crisis, right? Because it seems like there's always a crisis nowadays. But in the past, obviously there's the crises of the past, and then that's where the whole thing comes in, where who you choose to help and who you don't, And I don't ever want to be at the mercy of anybody, right? You don't want to ever be at the mercy of anybody, because that means you're putting your faith and your trust in the random individuals. And we know how, biases occur, and racism. And we all know who's getting blamed. And I feel terrible, right? I feel terrible at the end of the day, what was avoidable, what wasn't. And actually the past and the present do become related, because what is it called? Okay, well, yeah, like the past and the present, right? Because look, watch this, right? The guy, he, the guy's name, like, he, no, because the thing is, me deciding, like, okay, it's worth it to come to Algonquin College and to attend the program and hope to graduate and whatever. Because the thing is, like, I'm gonna be honest, right? Like, even with the amount of, like, housing near Algonquin, and the amount of, like, people that live here and whatever, right? Whatever have you, right? Like, whatever have you, right? Like, even with all that, right? There's still not enough, like, class size and housing, and even student, like most Canadians are in jail. They're not in the fucking colleges or universities, whatever. They were deemed, the undesirables, the riffraff of the society. That's because most people in any society are riffraff. Like, they're not like some top dog. They don't provide some, like, useful service or product that everybody needs, that and I'm not one of those people that just suddenly innovated some product. So I like these people, they come out of nowhere, and it's like they know what to say, they know what to do, and they can, like, innovate these things, like Mark Zuckerberg. And the real evil of the world is Mark Zuckerberg and his cronies, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and those are the people we should be revolting against, right? Some random Joe Schmo, okay, like I was the guy who posted the Gay History Month video. I was the guy who posted the N-word video, right? And some people, they don't even want to hear it from me, right? Like if you're of a certain racial background, they don't appreciate you. They don't need you, right? Like, they really, like, they're like the last person they want to see, And no, like, you'd want all of this stuff to be straightly objective, right? You want to be in control of your own destiny, right? You don't want some, like, guy to, tell you, tell you how to live, and to make you listen, and to, like, tell you these things, and all that. You don't want anybody to do that. You don't want, like the thing is, these videos are my last will and testament, right? I have no guarantee of tomorrow. I'm 25 at this point. That's pretty good for Canada. If you're in Canada, that's a pretty, you're like an old person. You're like an old head, they call them, right? Because you didn't overdose, you didn't get in the car crash, you didn't, commit suicide after all the problems. And they're honestly, like, the only reason I exist is because my parents were in pain after they arrived here to Canada, right? They didn't need to arrive here. They didn't need to, they need to come here. And honestly, I regret being born here. Like, this place is hell on earth, like, having to deal with bureaucracy and information and all these people and this bullshit. Like, I didn't fucking ask for that, right? And I've experienced a lot of problems, not just growing up, but just, like, dealing with the system, and wasted time, wasted potential, because everything was over when my mom just started telling me what to do and disrespected me. And obviously, like, the moment you're born a certain race, everything was kind of predetermined. And I just don't think that any of this stuff is proportional. Like, how is it even possible that, like, like the person even achieves a degree? And obviously, like, after all the hard work, they hope that the work is worth it, and it's worth it to do. look, my name is Serge, right? And Serge means servant. So that's what I do. I serve a person or place, right? I serve my parents. I can labor in their yard or whatever. My job, it was never to, be a full-time doctor and all that, and clear people of their problems. And like, the system already ruined the person's life, right? So they can like fit within it, and they can like proportionally measure, oh yeah, this person is fit, they have their medical school degree, and they went to medical school, and they have a university degree. But by the time that happens, we already know the world's kind of like already wonked. So like it would be all for nothing. So I mean, I try to enjoy every day nowadays. I mean, I try to enjoy every day. I'm sure you know I'm sure we could work something out afterwards. But um like the videos, they suffice. um like, we are overdue maybe by like 10 years or something, because like 500 days, 1,000 days, 2,000 days watching like TV shows, cartoons as a child, the ones that they have. I didn't have a choice, right? Because other than that, there's not much else to do. You're not given the opportunity to just um just do whatever you want every day. um it's complicated because like, I was watching TCAP with Chris Hansen, and I'm just thinking like, how do those people still alive? Do they still exist? And I mean, for me, the whole thing is like, I want to partake in the system and complete it fully, before I go anywhere, do anything. I don't want to travel anywhere, right? Because properly speaking, you would just do what you need to do every day, and that's it. You do what you need to do, and then you go home, so that you don't have to deal with like unnecessary bullshit. And that's why I say I sacrifice intellectual, social, moral, hygienic capacity, even the ability to walk. That's a product. That's an asset. That's something you own. The ability to walk properly without getting randomly attacked, that's a luxury. That's a luxury. Walking is a luxury. The fact that you still have legs and they move and you can walk is a luxury. So that's why I've changed. I changed. I'm pissed off at my parents. I'm still pissed off at them. They missed the mark entirely on what their job was, right? Like, helping the homeless, providing housing, teaching people so that they stay with the rest of the pack. They're following the herd. Because I don't have a community. I'm untethered to family, home, or community, just like in the past. It sucks, like, especially between you and your so-called friends. They're your friends one day, but then the next, they're no longer your friends. So no, it sucks. I don't record most of my life. I keep these thoughts to myself because my only one policy was that talking damages the Canadian order. So I wouldn't. You're not supposed to be talking in the first place. But now that I am, and I have the phone, and I'm talking in the cell phone, it has to be said. These things need to be said, right? Because the things occurred, and it's devastating, right? Like, the initial purpose of the system, and like, if it was determined by the system, right, like, what would happen, right? Like, the final result, like, of your life, you could live your life, all that, right? But then fate and free will occurs. So like, you have the free will to make a choice and all that, but then fate would be that you got caught up in the system. You need to go over to school, or you need to go to work or whatever. And we already know that, Americans aren't working, so like we could dispel the myths out of the picture. But you know, I'm pretty upset, right? I'm still very upset. I don't know how I'm gonna spend the rest of my life, thinking about those like fuck ups between me and my mom, because it's not worth it. I don't know what I would live for, because it's just the things that occurred are so wretched and vile that you can't imagine these conversations. We can't make this stuff up. The amount of time wasted and the expenditure and all that, it's not worth it in my opinion, right? Because okay, like just because your school wasn't the one that got shot up, and I know right now, like it's the world has never been in a more sensitive place in 2026. Like in 2016 it was, in 2000 like whatever, like it's only gotten worse every year, right? So that's something everybody can agree on, regardless of any like political, social class. We all agree that the world has only gotten worse, you know after like after those years, right? We know that the world has gone worse, but to what level, right? Because like, okay, I'm like, the thing is, like, if my mom worked at U of T and I'm telling people that like I can't do anything, like I can't do anything, my hands are wrapped behind my back in regards to pretty much anything, protecting people because Canada's self-defense laws, getting involved in a research project or trying to become a doctor, my hands are wrapped, like, because in my opinion, these institutions probably have some supernatural involvement where they, excuse me, they have some supernatural involvement where, the professors seem to avoid all the conflicts, and the students, some of them, like, have, like, some really good elite connections to ensure that, they never get in the crossfire of any conflict, any disease, any of these things. Their luck is always, like, it's always turning up. While other people, their luck is somehow always on the downturn, right? It's like their luck is always like, everything goes south, like there's an argument after a basketball game, or, they're in the system. And because for me, when I say the system, I'm talking about like from the very moment you enter like a preschool or like a kindergarten, the brain rot that the school system will put on you. I didn't mention any AI brain rot, any slop. I'm talking about the school system, right? That's the relevant problem. That's the thing that's gonna destroy your life. And that's why, like, I would have stayed in the system to escape it, because you need to build character development before you go out there and test your character development, and you fight, and you tackle against the world, you go up against the world, right? There's old saying, me versus the world. And a lot of people are going against themselves, right? It's them versus themselves. But I'm talking about the whole system. Like, the moment you're born and your parents tell you what to do and you mindlessly do it, that's the whole problem. That's the entire crux of the issue. And that's why Jennifer Pan and all the others, I don't feel bad for the parents that died. Those things are just bound to happen because there was no intervention early enough. The system didn't hold out, people didn't stop. They kept on going for whatever reason, going towards whatever oblivion, we don't even know, right? Because the thing is, we already know the